So our deck, we need to remove it from the frame, which I've already done. That's very, very easy. The tabs are quite small on this, so easy to remove them. Just going to remove these remaining little tabs for our various hatch openings. Just doing this very gently because this deck is very, very thin and therefore fragile, and wherever you've got a laser line, you've got a weakness effectively. So if you're not careful, you can cause yourself some inadvertent damage. So with that in mind, where we've just removed these parts and we've got these little tabs, don't clean them up now is my advice. Wait until you've got the deck glued down and this is much more rigid then, because if you go in with a file now, you're putting all sorts of pressures on there and flexing it, and you could break it. So to reduce that risk, clean this up once it's glued in place and it's on the plywood false deck, and it'll be a lot stronger, and you can just go in gently with a few swipes of a file and sort that out. We do at this point, however, have to sort out the tabs on the edges because that's going to get in the way of fit, or could get in the way of the fit. We do have a bulkhead going on top of this, so if we've got any gaps and things, it's not going to be a great issue. But I'm just sanding that down, not too coarse, because that's going to put more stress on it. So this is a 400 grit, and you can see that takes these down with just a few swipes very nicely. Make sure that's nice and flat. Yeah, I can feel with my finger that that's nice and smooth. So just do that on the other side, and then we test fit that this is going to fit into the deck. Now we're going to use wood adhesive for this. So before you come to fit your deck, you want to get yourself some weights, because we're going to weight this down and make sure that it bonds nicely. Because with this being fairly thin, there is a possibility it could curl. I mean, if I put it down, it looks flat, but it's not fully in contact all over. So we are going to want to weight this down. So paint jars doesn't need a lot of weight. I have some purpose weights, but they're a bit rusty. So I'm not going to use them because I don't want to mark. So maybe put a bit of tissue paper down and then put some weights on top. I have missed one of these little openings. You probably spotted it, but I didn't while I was talking. So let's just pop that one out as well. Brilliant. So there we are. We are all sorted now. So let's just try and test fit this. So I have my model on my build cradle now, and we will keep it there. I don't want to be moving it around too much because you can scuff the paintwork of your deck. If you've got a keel clamp, you can use that instead. I do have a keel clamp, but for this very first build, I'm building it exactly as intended by the kit manufacturer. So I found that this bit was a little bit tight. I think we've filmed opening that up, so we can just block that down, make sure it's aligned at the back, and just check the fit all the way around. So can you hold it into place, and is everything lined up? And especially check the fit around the stern area here, because it's going to sit with these parts raising out of it. So yeah, that all looks good. Everything looks aligned. Yeah, I'm happy that that deck is fitting nicely. So let's get it glued in. Okay, so time to glue this deck down. I have decanted some aliphatic resin glue into a bottle top here, and I've got a glue spreader. Remember those from school, but they're really great for these sort of jobs. What I want to do is I want to give this a thin coating. So we put it down. If you squirt it on and then you're then relying on pressure to spread it, you're not guaranteeing that you're getting it up to the edges, and that can come back and bite you. And once it's glued down and it's really solid in some areas but it's flicking up in others, you're in a world of hurt. So you need to make sure that you've given this an even coverage all over the edges, so that firstly you're not getting too much oozing out and making a mess, and secondly you know that the whole thing is going to get stuck down. I've got some weights and some tissue paper so we don't get anything on the deck once it's down. So I'm all prepared and ready to go. So I'm going to start by just getting some of the glue down. And then we can start spreading it out. When I poured it out, I thought this didn't look like there was enough. Sorry, that there was too much, but now I'm thinking there might not be enough. So there we go. We're going to spread it out. We need to work fairly quickly because once you get it thin, it starts drying off. And it doesn't matter if the glue is sort of at the point where it's going a bit tacky. That can actually be helpful. But we need to make sure we go right up to the edges. Do it methodically, so you can see I've spread out to the ends at the stern here, and we're working from the stern forward. Make sure that the spreader goes right over the edges so that you know that you've spread glue up to those edges. There we go. Right past the front there. Okay, a bit more. So you can see in the light where you've been and where perhaps you haven't. Okay, that is everything with glue on, so we're gonna get that down. I'm holding it by the edges, which bows it a little bit, and that helps with placing. Get it lined up with this stern post. There we go, and then we can press that down. We do have some glue on the deck. We're not going to worry about that right now. So I'm going to get a little bit of tissue paper, and we're just going to lift off that glue before it dries. Okay, so that's in, but you can see how it's raising up. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some weights in. So I've got some paint pots here. Actually, they're not quite strong enough. So I'm going to put my heavy weights on. I don't want to get any rust on the deck, so if you've got nice clean weights, that's ideal. And we just get that nicely weighted down. Now your belt and braces for this is that you are going to be putting in inner bulkheads, so if you have got any deck curl up at the end, we can absolutely lock that down when we put the bulkheads in, but let's try and get the deck nicely down while we can. After a few minutes, take your weights off and just go in and clean up any glue before it sets hard that you need to remove, because it'll be easier to do that now. We're not so worried about what's on the inside of there, but this area here where we're going to put the chimney, for example, we don't want anything interfering with the fit. And then put your weights back on, and away you go. I will leave that now for about half an hour to make sure that that's all nicely dried in place, and then we can clean up while that's drying off. While the deck is being weighted down and the glue is drying, we can remove the parts for our next stages. So our very next step is step 55, which is this outer stern transom piece. So we're going to remove that. I think we can put that to one side. And then we've got these inner bulwark patterns. Now there seems to be a small error in the instructions here. They're talking about part 51 and 52 left and right, but it's clearly 53 on the fret. I mean, this is clearly the part that they're talking about. It's the same shape, and it's the shape that you need. So yeah, 52 is correct, but 51 they show in the image is incorrect. It should be 53, but they're easy to identify, so it's not massive. So we're just going to carefully remove those as well. We're going to have to do some pre-shaping on some of these. And at this point you need to be thinking about what you want to do with the inside decoration. So you can leave them in this wood, which will look nice, or you could choose, and I think I'm going to take this option, you could choose to paint them in red ochre, which was typical for vessels at the time. Now this is modeller's discretion, you can do it either way. If you're going to paint them red, then you really want to paint them before you fit them, so you're not risking getting any paint onto your lovely deck that you've just added. Okay, so most of this we don't need, but we still have these little gun port lids, so I'm just going to remove those. They can go back in my kit box. And what I will do is I'll get rid of some of these bits, but I'll keep this long strip because you never know when it's going to be handy for all sorts of stuff. So with it being the pair, it matches nicely, and you can use it as shims, or you can use it for decorations or all sorts of stuff. So that piece, that goes into my spares box to be used on future builds, dioramas, all sorts of stuff. Right, I'm also going to remove these parts here, which go on the inside of these at the deck level, and will cover up any gaps and make sure that we've got a nice tight looking fit at the end. They're basically sort of like kick plates, I guess, to protect the bulwarks from cannons rolling into them and cannonballs and what have you. So I'm going to remove these as well, and again you have the option of painting these in the red ochre as well if you wish, which again I think I'm going to do. But if you want to leave them in the natural wood, you can do. You don't need to worry about clear coating these yet. You can do them at the same time as we seal in the deck. Okay, so this is our part 4, step 55, and what we want to do is we want to just clean that up. Let me get this out of the way. And you want to make sure that you get rid of the laser burn. So I'm using a 150 grit here, and we're just going to take that laser burn down so that you can see that nice natural colour of the wood. And we might have to do some sanding once it's fitted, but just in case we don't, it's easier to tidy it up now while it's not fitted. So while we're removing the tabs, we can also remove this laser burn. And then I'm going to go in with a 400 and just smooth that off. So I'm just putting it in and then gently pulling down. I'm not putting any pressure on, and that just opens up, gets that little bit of sanding dust out of the gap there. There we go. So that's ready to go, ready to be glued on. I've still got glue in my pot, so why don't we do that now? Just test fitting my transom, and my width appears to be perfect, so that's great. Don't worry about the gap that you might have here. We've got another decorative piece to put on, and we can look at that when we fit that. So right now all we need to do is get some glue onto this and clamp it in place. So once again, I am just going to spread the glue on this with my glue spreader. There we go. Plop it into place, and then we can clamp her down. Just make sure that when you put the clamps on that you don't aquaplane on your glue and have it slide about. There we go, and then we can just wipe any excess off straight away. And we'll just leave that to dry which won't take long. Step 56 now, and we need to clean the tabs up on these parts as well. Don't worry this time about the laser burn, because ultimately the edges are going to get covered up when we put the cap on top. So it's just gently removing our tabs. Then you're going to do some test fitting. The instructions suggest that you might need to do a little bit of shaping work to get it to fit. So it'll depend on how well you've brought your model together. Everyone will be slightly different, positionings will be different, but I suspect most people are not going to have an issue with this. So this is the stern shape, so gonna just have a little test fit. And what we want to be doing is lining up with our gun ports and making sure that we're at the top. Don't worry about the gap between the bottom and the deck. You don't want to be pushing it down to the deck. If you do that, then you're going to be in the wrong place. So when we come to fit this, you don't want to be pushing it down hard onto the deck, because if you do that, you'll see that you're not aligned and you've got a gap at the top. What we're doing is we're aligning with the top and with the little gun port pattern here that we'll be cutting out later on. So we want to make sure that this bit is over our knees at the back, and that we're aligned with that line there. We are going to sand the top of this anyway, so don't worry if that's not perfect. What we're looking for is perfect alignment with our gun ports, and these little square holes are rowing ports, so we want to make sure that they're all nicely aligned. There is enough flexibility in this part for you to be able to clamp it without having to shape it. So when you're happy that you understand what you're doing and that you don't need to do any trimming, then I'm going to have to trim mine a little bit, because you see how I can't quite align it in that direction. So you can see I have a slight alignment, and what's causing that when you look at it is this here. So I'm going to just sand that away a little bit. So what you want to do is 2 or 3 swipes, test fit, 2 or 3 swipes, test fit. Don't, otherwise if you go like that, you've created a gap and it doesn't look nice. We want a nice tight fit. So slowly catch your monkey. You can see initially if you've sanded flush because of the laser burn. So I'm going to try that, and we are nearly there but not quite. Right, this is going to take me a moment or two to sort. I think I'm nearly there, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. So back of that, and I noticed that this is square and we've got a bit of a shape to this, so I'm actually going to put a little chamfer on it, and that might just solve the problem. So it's just a case of being patient, test fitting and microscopic adjustments. There, that fits perfectly now. Now here I'm slightly higher than this. like I say, we are going to sand that back. You always read ahead in the instructions so you understand what's going to happen with your parts in the future. And then we're going to make sure that the top of this is at the top of that, so we have no unsightly gaps when the top rail goes on. So that all seems to be nicely aligned. Don't worry if it's not 100% perfect. We're going to go in with a little box file later and just make sure everything's aligned, because we didn't get it necessarily perfect when we put the outside one on. But now we've got these bulwarks, it looks really nice. I think we can get that one on. So same process as before. We're going to spread some glue down. There we go. So we're going to push that into place to start with. Make sure we're happy with the position and the height. And then we can clip it into place. So I'm going to start at the back, just push it in, put a clip right there at the back so it's nice and tightly sandwiched. Another one just below it, and just slowly go along, clamping it as we go, correcting our positions. There we go. So we can just leave that to dry now, and whilst that's drying, we can do the other side if you've got enough clamps. The front templates need to be shaped, and that's what we're doing here right now. These aren't glued in. So just like we did with the outer templates earlier in the build, we've soaked the front sections in some water. And when they were good and wet after a couple of minutes, we've put them into place. The fit is very tight. The tolerances are very tight. So what you have to do is sort of clip it in so that it starts to bend, and then take the clips off and push it in a bit more and put the clips back on, so that it's going to dry and hold its shape. Then we're going to take it out and glue it back in. So right now all these clips are making sure that completely conforms to shape. On this side I've glued this in now, and that glue will probably be strong enough that we can unclip it. I had less work to do to get this to fit in place, which just shows you that even though you've got quite an accurately engineered kit, those tolerance differences will naturally comes. So on this side we've had to do some modification to get this in, and on this side it's been much less of an issue. So there you go, that's our front piece drying off. We can, whilst that is drying, we can test fit our pieces from the back and just see how they're gonna fit and whether we're happy with them. And I need to put the right piece in to do that. So we can test fit these as well. So we've got this little slant here that goes up against the stern there, and this should be sitting no higher than the level of the bottom of the gun port. Ideally you want it to sit just a little bit below if you can. Mine is doing that, so that's all nice. And yeah, that's going to fit in nicely. These are fairly thin, so they should fit a little bit better. As in, we might not need to soak these at all because there is a little bit of bend in them. So we'll get these glued in and then we'll attach these. So this is our part ready to be fitted. You can see it's holding its shape quite nicely. What I have done is I've just sanded a little chamfer on this edge and this edge to help with the fit, and it just helps pop that in at the last minute. But yeah, we can glue this into place now. So let's do that. So we're just going to spread this like we've been doing before. Make sure we're right up to the edges there. There we go. I'm going to pop it in at the front there first, and then push this in like so, and then we're going to position it use a cocktail stick there to make sure that we have got nice alignment of the holes, which we have, and now making sure that we are okay with the gun pattern there. And then get this nice and tight so we've got a good solid sandwich of the part with no gaps. Got a little bit of glue oozing out. We are going to cut and sand this area, but I'll just take the most excess off while I can. There we go, and that's how we do that. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and I'm going to take this one off and do that one, and then we can fit the next parts. So we're going to let all of this dry now for a little bit of time before we come back and sand it. So you want to leave it for 6 hours or so to make sure it's really nice and strong and dry before we come and do the sanding of these tops ahead of putting the top rails on. So there you go, we're making nice progress.